Imagine being able to make yourself almost completely invisible in any environment you are in. Not with a device, not with a suit, just your own body, in under a second, matching the color and texture of whatever surface is behind you so precisely that someone looking directly at you sees nothing. Now add this. You are colorblind. You cannot see the colors you are matching. You are reproducing them perfectly without being able to perceive them. That is not a hypothetical. That is what the octopus does, routinely, and we still do not have a complete explanation for how. The octopus is the product of an entirely separate evolutionary line that arrived at complex intelligence through a path that shares nothing with ours. We last shared a common ancestor roughly 750 million years ago, a flat, brainless creature with no eyes and no nervous system worth mentioning. From that point, evolution built cognition twice, through completely different mechanisms, and arrived at results that are disturbingly similar. If you are not subscribed yet, now is a good time. This gets stranger with every section. To understand how that is even possible, you have to start with the body, because the body alone is already a problem for any reasonable definition of how an animal is supposed to work. The octopus has no skeleton, no rigid structure anywhere, no fixed shape. The entire body can be compressed and pushed through any opening larger than its beak, which is the single hard part of its anatomy, a small curved structure made of chitin sitting at the center of the arms. Outside of the beak, everything is soft tissue that reorganizes itself as needed. There are documented cases of an octopus the size of a soccer ball passing through a hole roughly the size of a coin. The rule is simple. If the beak fits, the octopus fits. Nothing else in the body is capable of stopping it. It has 3 hearts. 2 pump blood through the gills. 1 pumps it through the rest of the body. The blood is blue, not as a cosmetic detail, but because it uses hemocyanin instead of hemoglobin to carry oxygen. Hemocyanin is copper-based, where hemoglobin is iron-based. It is also less efficient. Blue blood carries less oxygen per unit of volume than red blood does. This has direct behavioral consequences. The octopus fatigues quickly and cannot sustain high activity for extended periods. All of that speed and precision you see when it moves comes in short bursts. The system works, but there is almost no margin. It is a body that operates close to its limits at all times, with very little reserve built in. The nervous system is where things start departing from anything familiar. The octopus has roughly 500 million neurons, a number comparable to a dog. But about 2/3 of those neurons are not in the brain. They are distributed across the 8 arms. Each arm has its own local processing. The central brain issues a general direction, something close to explore that area, and the arm executes on its own, processing local sensory input without waiting for instruction. The octopus operates less like a general commanding troops and more like a team where each member makes independent decisions within a shared general direction. That architecture does not exist anywhere else in nature at anything close to this scale. It is not a variation on a known design. It is a different design entirely. The octopus is colorblind. Its eyes contain only one type of photoreceptor, which means it technically cannot distinguish colors. And yet it produces color-matching camouflage with a precision that no other animal on the planet consistently matches. It blends into orange coral, white sand with dark patches, green algae-covered rock. In milliseconds, without seeing the colors, it is reproducing. This is one of the most genuinely puzzling paradoxes in current biology, and the honest answer is that we do not fully know how it does it. There are strong hypotheses, but the complete explanation has not arrived yet. That gap is not a minor technical detail. It is a fundamental question about how the animal's sensory system actually works. The leading hypothesis involves the skin itself. Distributed across the chromatophores, the cells responsible for color change, are opsins, the same light-sensitive proteins found in eyes. The idea is that the skin may detect light directly, independent of the eyes. If that is confirmed, the octopus would be an animal that sees color across its entire body surface simultaneously, without a central visual image, without anything resembling conventional sight. The skin would be responding to the environment and matching it without the brain needing to process a visual field at all. This is still active research, not closed consensus, but the experimental evidence points in this direction. Subscribe so you don't miss the video when we go deeper into this. The camouflage system has 3 simultaneous layers. Chromatophores controlled by muscles rather than hormones, which change in milliseconds. Iridophores, which are structural color cells that manipulate reflected light. And papillae, physical projections of the skin that rise and flatten to replicate surface texture. The octopus does not just change color, it changes color, reflectivity, and physical texture at the same time, in real time. One species, the mimic octopus, Thomoctopus mimicus, found in Indo-Pacific waters, goes further still. It does not hide, it impersonates flatfish, lionfish, sea snake. Researchers found evidence that it selects which imitation to perform based on which local predator the approaching threat is most likely to fear. That is not reflex behavior. That requires identifying the threat, retrieving a behavioral template, and executing a full-body transformation calibrated to a specific audience. An animal that can identify a predator, select the right imitation, and execute a full-body transformation on the spot clearly knows things. The question is where that knowledge came from, because the octopus learns everything alone. No parent, no older member of the species nearby, no social group. The female lays her eggs, stops eating, and dies shortly after they hatch. The hatchlings emerge alone, tiny, and need to function from the first moment with zero transfer of knowledge from any previous generation. There is no culture in the sense of accumulated information passed forward, no social learning. Each octopus starts from nothing, and despite that, in laboratory settings, they open child-proof pill bottles from the inside, navigate multi-step mazes with no prior training, unscrew jar lids. In one documented case, an octopus in an aquarium repeatedly shot jets of water at the overhead light until the researchers removed the bulb entirely. It kept doing it until the problem was solved. That is not a reflex, that is a campaign. They also play. In experiments where octopuses were given objects that offered no survival benefit, no food, no shelter, no practical use, they interacted with those objects repeatedly, with behavioral variations that had no function beyond what appears to be stimulation. Play behavior is considered a marker of complex cognition because it requires acting without immediate reward, which implies some level of internal representation of the world beyond pure stimulus response. Octopuses in aquariums also recognize specific human individuals. They respond differently to different people, even when those people wear identical clothing. There is a documented case from a Seattle aquarium where a single octopus consistently aimed water jets at one specific volunteer it apparently disliked, while ignoring everyone else. That is not generalized behavior. That is a personal opinion about a specific person. They sleep. During sleep, octopuses show rapid shifts in skin color and texture that cycle through patterns similar to their waking camouflage states, as if replaying situations. Researchers in Brazil documented this in detail and proposed it as evidence of REM-like sleep, possibly involving active memory consolidation. What makes this significant is the architecture involved. REM sleep invertebrates evolved as a function of the centralized nervous system. The octopus, with 2/3 of its neurons outside the brain and a completely different structural design, appears to have arrived at something functionally similar through a different path, which raises a question that is difficult to dismiss. If the same phenomenon emerges twice in systems this different from each other, what exactly is producing it? The answer starts taking shape when you look at the genome. The octopus genome was fully sequenced in 2015 using the species Octopus bimaculoides. It contains 2.7 billion base pairs, roughly the same size as the human genome. It also contains around 33,000 protein-coding genes, significantly more than the 20,000 to 25,000 estimated in the human genome. A substantial portion of that expansion sits in two gene families directly linked to neural complexity: protocadherin genes, which govern how neurons wire to each other during development, and C2H2 zinc finger transcription factors. No other invertebrate has a comparable expansion in both of those groups. The genome looks, in specific and measurable ways, as if it was selectively configured to produce a more elaborate nervous system. Nobody expected to find that in a mollusk. In 2018, researchers at Johns Hopkins University published a study in Current Biology testing the effect of MDMA on octopuses. Octopuses are solitary. They do not seek physical contact with other octopuses outside of reproduction. Under normal conditions, when placed near another octopus, they keep their distance. After MDMA exposure, they began seeking physical contact, spending time near other individuals, displaying behavior they never exhibit naturally. The serotonin pathway in the octopus nervous system is conserved enough that a drug designed for human neurochemistry produces a recognizable behavioral effect in an animal that separated from our evolutionary lineage 750 million years ago. Same molecule, same effect. two animals that share almost nothing biologically. That is not a curiosity. That is a data point about how deep certain molecular solutions go. But the finding that reframes everything is not in the DNA. It is in what happens after. The octopus edits its own RNA systematically and deliberately. In vertebrates, RNA editing exists, but is rare, mostly small, specific corrections. In the octopus, RNA editing in neural tissue occurs in approximately 60% of transcripts. 60%. That means the octopus does not simply read its genetic code. It actively rewrites the instructions before the protein is produced, in real time, in response to environmental conditions, including temperature. When water temperature changes, the octopus edits different sets of RNA to adjust how the nervous system functions. No other animal does this at this scale. It is a form of biological flexibility that has no known equivalent anywhere else. The individual nervous system is not running a fixed program. It is running a program it is actively rewriting while it runs. That flexibility has a cost. Systematic RNA editing requires stable genomic sequences. The editing machinery depends on conserved regions to recognize where to intervene. Maintaining that stability suppresses normal genetic mutation rates. The octopus DNA evolves more slowly than that of virtually any animal of comparable complexity. They traded evolutionary plasticity for individual adaptability. The individual adjusts in real time. The species, however, changes very slowly. In evolutionary terms, the octopus bet everything on the capacity of the individual organism to adapt, rather than on genetic variation across the population over time. That is an unusual bet. Most successful animal lineages did the opposite. Put it together. The octopus has intelligence comparable to a dog, camouflage that defies current explanation, a distributed nervous system with no parallel. It learns with zero social support. It dreams, recognizes individuals, plays, makes situational decisions. And underneath all of that, it has a biological mechanism where the nervous system rewrites its own genetic instructions while operating, in response to the environment, in real time. The word alien gets used casually about a lot of things. In this case, it is almost technically accurate, not because the octopus is strange in appearance. Because the strategy it uses to exist, to think, adapt, and function, has no equivalent in our branch of the tree of life and emerged from a completely independent origin. The octopus lives 1 to 2 years. The giant Pacific octopus reaches 5 in exceptional cases, but 5 years is still less than the average lifespan of a house cat. Everything the octopus develops, every adjustment its nervous system makes, every individual it learns to recognize, every behavioral flexibility its RNA editing enables, disappears with it. Nothing transfers. Nothing accumulates. No culture, no tradition, no mechanism for carrying knowledge forward. Each octopus is a complete experiment that begins and ends without leaving a record. The intelligence is fully present and then gone without a trace. That gap, between the complexity of what is happening inside that animal and the brevity and complete isolation of its existence, is the most quietly disturbing thing about it. The cuttlefish, a close relative, took the same distributed nervous system in a different direction. Real-time color communication, evidence of future planning, something that looks a lot like episodic memory. That story is worth its own video. If this one was worth your time, the like helps the channel keep making this kind of content.